Hello and welcome to Daily News Simplified, an answer to what, why and how of newspaper reading. Today we will discuss the articles displayed on the screen from the Delhi edition of The Hindu newspaper dated 17th May 2019. So let us start our discussion. Now today in the description box of video, you will find a link to a PDF document which provides a list of topics covered in the DNS videos from 2nd January 2018 till 15th May 2019. Now this list of topics of DNS which were covered in the past 1.5 years will make it easy for you to find the topics you want to search. Now these topics have been listed in a date-wise manner. For example, the list for 2nd January 2018 includes these 6 topics. And if you want to search for secularism and Indian Constitution, you can simply do a Ctrl and F and write the topic secularism. So it will provide you the topics which have been covered in the past 1.5 years. Now when you reach this topic, after doing the Ctrl F, you will find a link for that video. So you can click that link and go through the coverage in that video regarding any topic you want. Now initially the time stamping was not being provided for the videos. However, this started from 31st August 2018. So any topic after 31st August 2018 has a time stamping in front of it. So by searching that topic and by directly clicking on that time stamping, you can reach that topic and you can go through the video, and this will make things simple for you. And this has been released with a point of view that every student gets the benefit of all the topics which have been covered in the past 1.5 years. So all the best for your preliminary examination, and please go through the document and find whichever topic that has been covered in the DNS in past 1.5 years that you want to search for. Now this article on page number 7 is in news because recently one of the proposal of India at the Basel meeting convention was defeated. And this proposal was related to banning of the dumping of electronic and plastic wastes from the developed countries into the developing countries. So this will form a part of the preliminary examination syllabus under the topic General Issues on Environment and Ecology. Now in this article, let us try to understand some basic features of the Basel Convention and which can be important for us from the preliminary examination point of view. Now the Basel Convention is formally known as the Basel Convention on the Control of Transboundary Movement of Hazardous Wastes and their Disposal. So this means that it is related to the movement of hazardous waste from one country to another, and especially from developed countries into the developing countries. Now let us look at the background of this convention. Now this convention was adopted in 1989 by a famous conference known as the Conference of Plenipotentiaries. And this was signed in response to the protests against the disposal or dumping of toxic waste from developed countries into developing countries, especially into Africa. So it aims to reduce the movement of hazardous waste between nations and specifically prevent transfer of hazardous waste from developed to the developing countries. So it aims to reduce the movement of hazardous waste both between nations, and especially its focus is on reducing this movement from the developed countries into the less developed or the developing countries. So the Basel Convention intends to minimize the amount and the toxicity of the wastes which are generated. It also aims to ensure the environmentally sound management of the toxic wastes, and it aims to assist the least developed countries in environmentally sound management of hazardous and other wastes. However, you should note that it does not address the movement of radioactive waste. And as we have learned, India had proposed that it should also include plastic and electronic waste. However, this proposal has been defeated at the current Basel Convention meeting. So presently it deals only with the hazardous waste movement from developed countries to developing countries, also between various nations. However, it does not include radioactive waste, and also it does not include plastic and electronic waste movement. Now a related convention or a similar convention is the Rotterdam Convention. However, this convention deals with the movement of hazardous chemicals and pesticides, and it does not deal with the waste. So it deals with the movement and management of hazardous chemicals and the pesticides. So it aims to promote open exchange of information between the importers and exporters of hazardous chemicals. It provides various norms for safe handling of chemical exports or hazardous chemical exports. So you should note that the Rotterdam Convention does not deal with the waste. However, the Basel Convention deals with the waste or the hazardous waste movement. So this is the basic difference between the two conventions. So these are two conventions, namely the Basel and Rotterdam, and these can be important for us from the preliminary examination. Now similarly, there are various other conventions. For example, there is Stockholm Convention, etc. So for understanding and reading about them, you can read the C3 magazine or the Prelims Compass of the Environment Ecology section. With this, let's move to the next article. This article on page number 5 talks about a biosphere reserve in India which is known as the Seshachalam. And it is talking about the adverse heat conditions that are present in this biosphere. And this is causing the depletion and scarcity of water and food for the wildlife. Further, it says that due to the scorching heat and scarcity of water and food, critically endangered animals like slender loris and the pangolin are venturing into human habitats. So this will form a part of the preliminary examination syllabus under the topic General Issues on Biodiversity. So in this article, let's try to understand the locations of various biosphere reserves in India and also look at which all biosphere reserves have been included in the World Network of Biosphere Reserves by the UNESCO. And these are also known as those biosphere reserves which have been recognized under the Man and Biosphere program of UNESCO. So regarding the various biosphere reserves that are present in India, a list has been provided in the Prelims Compass of 2019. And in this list, it has provided the location of the biosphere reserve, the flora, the fauna, and important tribals living in those biosphere reserves. Further, it has also mentioned if that biosphere reserve is included in the Man and Biosphere program of the UNESCO or not. So if you look at the Seshachalam Hills, it is found in the Seshachalam ranges in Eastern Ghats. And the type of vegetation which is found in the Seshachalam Biosphere Reserve is the tropical dry deciduous forests. And it also has the presence of red sanders, which has recently been named as near threatened in the IUCN's red list. And previously it was listed as endangered. So this is one important information for us from the preliminary examination point of view. Further, the important fauna are slender loris, Indian giant squirrel and mouse. And as has been provided in this article, it also has the presence of pangolin, which is also a critically endangered animal. And you should note that the Tirupati Balaji temple is located within this Seshachalam Biosphere Reserve. So these are few important facts related to the Seshachalam Biosphere Reserve. So similarly, you can see in this list, it has provided various information related to other biosphere reserves of India. So for example, regarding the Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve, it provides that it is a part of the Wayanad, Nagarhole, Bandipur, Muddumalai, Nilambur, Silent Valley and the Siruvani Hills in Tamil Nadu, Kerala and Karnataka. And the flora that is found here is tropical forest. Fauna is tiger, elephants, Nilgiri, and it has some important tribal communities living inside it, which are the Chola Naikans, which are the only surviving hunter-gatherers in the Indian subcontinent. So all these informations can be important for us from the preliminary examination. Further, you should also learn that which all biosphere reserves have been included in the Man and Biosphere program of UNESCO. So as we can see, the first one is the Nilgiri, second is Nanda Devi, which is in Uttarakhand and especially in these districts of Uttarakhand. Then there is Nokrek National Park, which is located in the Garo Hills of the Meghalaya. So this is another important information. Then there are the Sundarbans, which are located in West Bengal, Gulf of Mannar in Tamil Nadu, Great Nicobar in Andaman and Nicobar Islands, Simlipal in Odisha in the Mayurbhanj district. And then there is Panchmadi in Maharashtra, which is located in on the Satpura Hills. Kanchenjunga in Sikkim, and it has been recently added, and that is why it becomes important, because it is recently added into the Man and Biosphere list of the UNESCO. Then there is Agastyamalai in Tamil Nadu and Kerala, and the Achanak Mar and the Amarkantak Plateau in the Satpura and Maikala Hills. So all this information becomes important for us from the preliminary examination point of view. So you should know that which all biosphere reserves have been included in the Man and Biosphere program. Further, you should know the important type of fauna found there, especially the type of forests that are found in these biosphere reserves. So as we have learned, tropical dry deciduous forests are found in the Seshachalam Hills. And you should also learn the location of various national parks in these biosphere reserves. So a list will be provided in today's description in the PDF. So you can go through this list and understand these in more detail. Further, you can see the location of these biosphere reserves on this map, and it will also be provided in the PDF. So as you can see, the Seshachalam Hills is present in the Eastern Ghats. Similarly, the location of other biosphere reserves has also been provided. For example, Cold Desert in Jammu and Kashmir, Kanchenjunga, which has been recently added into the Man and Biosphere program. Then there are Dibang Valley, Dibru Saikova, etc. So you should learn the location of all these important biosphere reserves of India. And all these will be provided in the description in the PDF today. With this, let's move to the next article. Now, this editorial on page number 8 talks about the position of India regarding the tension in the Gulf region, and especially after the sanctions which have been imposed by the United States on Iran and various other issues. Now, from preliminary examination point of view, we will look at a mechanism which has been designed by the EU and the Iran to bypass these sanctions which have been imposed by the US, and that can be important for us from the preliminary examination point of view. So let us look at that. Now, as we know that the United States has imposed sanctions on Iran regarding its nuclear program, the UK, France and Germany, which are part of the EU, have registered a new special purpose vehicle. And this special purpose vehicle has been called as the Instrument in Support of Trade Exchanges, or the INSTEX. And it has been registered in France in 2019. Now, what is the purpose of this special purpose vehicle? So it is intended to allow the EU entities to conduct non-dollar trade with Iran. So by allowing the EU entities to conduct non-dollar trade, it can easily circumvent the US sanctions on Iran. This is because in the background of sanctions on Iran, it would be impossible or difficult to trade in dollars. And that is why such a special purpose vehicle has been created by the EU countries. Now, in response to this INSTEX, Iran has also set up its counterpart body, and this is known as the Special Trade and Finance Institute. And the purpose of both these institutes is to circumvent the US sanctions on Iran and continue with trade between the EU countries and the Iran. So both these initiatives can be very important for us from the preliminary examination point of view. Now, both the INSTX and the STFI were conceived as a mean to match the trade of Iranian oil and gas exports to EU against the purchases of the EU goods by Iran. So initially both were meant to match the oil and gas from Iran with that of purchase of EU goods by Iran. Now, the intention of Iran was to match all the EU goods which are imported into Iran. However, the EU wants that it should not be applicable to all the EU goods and should be restricted to only small number of goods. Further, countries like India and China have shown interest in the INSTEX, but they have not moved forward into formal discussion on this topic. So these are few important initiatives and can be important for us from the preliminary examination point of view. With this, let's move to the next article. Now, this article on page number 6 talks about the various challenges that are being faced in the implementation of Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. And it emphasizes that out of the 1400 crore rupees which were earmarked for the northeastern states, only 8% have been spent till now. Further, many of the states are opting out of this scheme, and also 4 union territories are not part of the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. So this shall form a part of the General Studies paper 3 under the topic Economic Development. Now, the various challenges in the implementation of Fasal Bima Yojana have already been discussed in a previous DNS video. However, first let us understand the various issues highlighted by this article, and after that we will revise the previous video where we have discussed the challenges in the implementation of Fasal Bima Yojana. And both these will cover the various aspects of challenges that are being faced in the implementation of Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. So regarding the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana, you should note that out of the rupees 1400 crore which have been allotted to the northeastern states, only about 8 crore rupees have been spent, and which amounts to over only 0.5%. Besides, 4 northeastern states, Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, Manipur and Mizoram, are not covered under the scheme at all. Further, the farmers in 7 states and 4 union territories nationwide will not be covered in the upcoming Kharif season. Also, some states like Bihar and Bengal have withdrawn from the Fasal Bima Yojana, and they will be implementing their own state level schemes. Further, Punjab never participated in this scheme, while the union territories like Delhi and Chandigarh are mainly urban spaces, and that is why they are not participating in Fasal Bima Yojana. Now, the reasons which have been cited by the government functionaries include there has been a lack of interest by the insurance companies. And besides the lack of interest of insurance companies, another important factor is the lack of state budgetary resources to pay their share of the premium. Now, it has a provision of premium which is to be paid by government as well as the farmer. So, the states are not paying their share of the premium, and that is why the scheme is not being implemented. Secondly, the insurance companies have been reluctant because of high administrative costs. And besides this, there are no proper land records. And this becomes a major hindrance in the implementation of this scheme, which is primarily being implemented by the insurance companies. Now, there is lack of proper forecasting system, which is an important aspect of the weather-based insurance scheme. And finally, Center has also pointed out that the state governments are not sufficiently interested in promoting this scheme. And all these factors are leading to non-implementation or rather poor implementation of the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. Now, besides these points, we have already discussed various issues and challenges with the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. So let us once again revise those challenges that we have already covered in a previous video. And by combining both these videos, you'll be able to write an answer related to the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana and the challenges that are being faced in its implementation. These articles on page number 1 and page number 6 are related to the crop insurance scheme, that is the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. And these articles mainly discuss an issue that has been highlighted in the reply of an RTI. So this will form a part of the General Studies paper 3 of the mains examination. Now, if you go through the previous year questions, there was a question asked in the mains examination in the year 2016. And there was a question asked in the preliminary examination of 2016 which was related to Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. However, in this article, we will try to understand what are the key aspects of the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana and what are the problems and challenges in the implementation of the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. Now, the article highlights that based on a recent RTI application, more than 84 lakh farmers have withdrawn from the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. And these 84 lakh farmers are around 15% of the total farmers who had insured themselves under the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana in the year 2016 and 17. Now, this insurance-based scheme is one of the major initiatives of Government of India to reduce the agricultural distress, and that is why the withdrawal of the farmers from this scheme is a cause of concern. So, in this context, let us understand the various challenges and problems in the implementation of this scheme. Now, about the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana, you should note that it provides insurance coverage and financial support to the farmers in the event of failure of any of the notified crop as a result of natural calamities, pests or diseases, etc. So it provides the insurance cover and financial support in case of crops which are destroyed by natural calamities, pests or diseases. And the maximum premium that has to be paid by the farmers for the Kharif crops is 2%. For Rabi crops, it is 1.5%. And for commercial and horticultural crops, it is about 5%. So these figures are important. Further, the balance premium or the premium that has been remaining after the premium that has been paid by the farmer will be paid by the government, so that full insured amount can be provided to the farmers in case of a crop loss on the account of natural calamities. And this subsidy will be equally divided between the state and the central government. Now, this scheme covers three types of farmers. The first are the loany farmers. These are those farmers who have availed institutional loans. For example, those farmers who have availed loan from banks or cooperative societies. The second category includes the non-loany farmers. These farmers include those farmers who have not taken any institutional loans, however, they voluntarily want to avail the insurance cover under this scheme. The third type of farmers include the sharecroppers or the tenant farmers. And these are those farmers who have rented the farmland from other landholders. So in this case, you should note that Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana is compulsory for the loany farmers. So this means that it is compulsory for those farmers who have taken institutional loans. So these are few aspects which are important for us from preliminary examination point of view. Now let us look at the problems and the challenges in the implementation of Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. Now, regarding the problems and challenges in the implementation of Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana, the first one includes the negligible coverage of sharecroppers and the tenant farmers. Now, these sharecroppers and tenant farmers are included in this scheme. However, when it comes to implementation, these farmers, that is the sharecroppers and the tenant farmers, are not getting benefits from the insurance scheme. Now, the primary reason for the failure of giving the benefits to sharecroppers and tenant farmers is that these farmers needs papers or certifications to prove that they are farming as tenant croppers or the sharecroppers. However, this has not been feasible because most of the state governments have either legally banned or imposed restrictions on the agricultural land leasing. So this has not been possible for the tenant farmers and the sharecroppers to present papers or certifications. This is because the state governments have banned the legal land leasing in their states. Now, the implementation of Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana has been discouraging mixed cropping and crop diversification. This is because only a limited number of crops are notified by the states under the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. And only on these crops can anyone avail the insurance. So this acts as an impediment to the crop diversification or the mixed cropping. And you should know that the Fasal Bima Yojana covers only limited number of food crops and oil seeds besides certain crops which are included under the horticulture. So due to this limitation, the Fasal Bima Yojana has been discouraging crop diversification and mixed cropping. Now, the third major challenge in the implementation of Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana is that there is poor awareness about this scheme. In this regard, a recent survey has found that only 30% of the farmers were aware about this scheme. The fourth problem is related to the inadequate or delayed claim payments to the farmers under this insurance-based Fasal Bima Yojana. So in this regard, according to a report, on May 2018, only 5% of the claims have been paid on time, and the remaining 95% are still waiting for their claims. Now, this delay in the payment of claims has been because of the delay by the central government and the state government in disbursing subsidies to the insurance companies. Now, another important challenge or problem in the implementation of Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana is very high premium rates. And these high premium rates are mainly prevalent in the drought prone areas or the rain fed areas. This is because the risk of crop loss due to natural calamities is more in the drought prone areas and the rain fed areas. And according to some activists, the premiums have gone as high as 40% in the state of Madhya Pradesh, and they have gone up to 80% in the case of Rajasthan. Now, another important issue in the implementation of Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana is the loopholes in the assessment of the crop loss. And according to Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana, it encourages the use of satellite, remote sensing technology and drones to improve the speed and reliability of crop loss assessment. However, various state governments have failed to carry out these assessments properly, despite the availability of technology. So this is another issue or challenge in the implementation of Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. So these are the key problems and challenges in the implementation of Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. Now, if you go through the question that was asked in the year 2016, the question reads, with reference to the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana, consider the following statement. The first statement reads, under this scheme, farmers will have to pay a uniform premium of 2% for any crop they cultivate in any season of the year. We know that this statement is incorrect because the farmers have to pay 2% for Kharif crops, 1.5% for Rabi crops and 5% for commercial and horticultural crops. So this statement is outrightly incorrect. The second statement reads, this scheme covers post-harvest losses arising out of cyclones and unseasonal rains. We know that it covers crop losses due to natural calamities. So this statement is correct. Hence the correct answer in this case is B, that is 2 only. Now if you go through the mains examination question of 2016, it reads, given the vulnerability of Indian agriculture to the vagaries of nature, discuss the need for crop insurance and bring out the salient features of the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. Now this scheme was started in the year 2016. So it talked about the salient features of Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. However, now 2 years have passed and the scheme has now been implemented. So now a question can be asked based on the problems and the challenges in the implementation of Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. So you should cover these aspects of the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana from the mains examination point of view. With this, let us move on to the next article. Now this article on page number 8 talks about why India's industrial policy is crucial for removing and reducing the poverty and sustaining economic growth. And in this article, the author has highlighted that there is a need to replicate the success of the information technology and services and the lessons learned from the East Asian economies in order to promote manufacturing sector in India. So this will form a part of the General Studies paper 3 under the topic Economic Development. Now, as we all know that after liberalization and privatization in 1991, India's service sector has witnessed unprecedented growth. However, the manufacturing sector has not improved or grown in a similar fashion as compared to the service sector. And this has created certain issues or problems in the Indian economy. And that is why Indian growth story has been termed as a jobless growth story. And this is particularly because the manufacturing sector is known to employ a large number of people and create huge number of jobs. On the other hand, the service sector, although improves the growth, however, it is not able to create a large number of jobs. And that is why India having a demographic dividend and a huge demographic bulge in its young population needs the growth of manufacturing sector. And that is why the author has highlighted that no major country has managed to reduce poverty or sustain economic growth without a robust manufacturing sector. So in this regard, first let us look at how the East Asian economies like Malaysia, Singapore and Thailand have been able to grow at a phenomenal rate. Secondly, we should look at the lessons that India has to learn from its growth in the information and technology sector. And after that, let us look at what should be the contour of new industrial policy for India, and which can help India reduce its poverty and have a sustainable economic growth. Now, the East Asian economies like Malaysia, Singapore and Thailand have been able to grow at a phenomenal rate in the past and pull out a large number of people out of poverty. And this has mainly been because these countries or the growth model of these countries emphasized on promotion of manufacturing sector and boosting the exports. Now, similar to the East Asian countries, China has also been able to manage high growth rate and which has been employment intensive. And this has mainly been because of the export-led manufacturing sector, and now it has emerged as the global manufacturing hub, which means that China is the center of manufacturing of the world, and it has mainly been exporting manufacturing products to other countries. And as we all know that this has also been a main reason for US imposing trade sanctions or tax barriers on China's imports, and which has escalated into a trade war between US and China. However, in contrast to the East Asian growth model and China's manufacturing model, India's manufacturing sector has failed to take off, and its share in the GDP is only 16% since 1991 LPG reforms. So post the 1991 LPG reforms, manufacturing has contributed to only 16% of the GDP. Now, in contrast with this, the service sector has contributed to around 60% of the GDP growth. So this shows that India has not leveraged the benefits of manufacturing in its growth story. And that is why this has not led to the improvement in the job scenario in India. Now, this low contribution of the manufacturing sector in India has been despite India having certain advantages. For example, India has got cheap and surplus labor, abundant raw materials, etc. And despite this, India has not been able to leverage those advantages. And amongst the service sector, the information technology and information technology related services have witnessed the highest growth. So to have a sustained economic growth, which creates huge employment, India needs to focus on its manufacturing sector. And that is why there is a requirement to formulate a new industrial policy, and that should be based on the lessons learned from the phenomenal growth in the service sector and especially in the information technology sector. And also we can take lessons from the growth stories of China and the East Asian growth model. Now, in this article, the author has highlighted that the information technology sector in India prospered because of positive government intervention and support in the initial stages. So in this regard, let us look at some of the positive interventions by the government in improving the IT sector in India. Now, the first and the foremost intervention of the government of India was that it spent public money in creating high-speed internet connectivity of the global standards with the US for the IT software parks. Now, this was done years ahead of the telecom modernization in India, and this enabled seamless integration of Indian IT industry with that of the US markets. So the high-speed internet connectivity in which the government invested the public money, led to the integration of Indian IT companies with the United States' markets. Secondly, the government brought the trade in services into the regulatory framework of imports and exports. And due to this, it allowed the IT sector to import duty-free hardware as well as software. And it also gave incentives for the export of services. Now, this enabled the nascent IT industry to get integrated into the dynamic US market without any disadvantage, and especially in terms of hardware and the software costs. So, the government's policy made the exports attractive. So, the government's policy made the trade in hardware and software attractive and less expensive. And due to this, India was able to leverage the benefits of the US markets. Further, the IT industry was able to function under the Shops and Establishment Act. And the benefit of this was that it was not subjected to over 40 labor laws and other regulatory burden that were imposed because of these laws. So by not subjecting the IT sector to labor laws and making it a part or letting it function under the Shops and Establishment Act, it was ensured that it did not have to follow the 40 labor laws of our country. And finally, the IT sector leveraged the benefits of low-cost, high-value human capital, and which was created by investment made a generation earlier into the higher scientific and technical education. And without all these initiatives or efforts of the Government of India, success story of the information technology sector would not have been materialized. So in this regard, the author highlights that what should be the broad contours of a new industrial policy and how India can learn the lessons from its IT experience or the IT growth story experience. So the broad contours of a new industrial policy which will boost India's growth and will also create employment. The first is that facilitative investment by the government to promote private sector investment in manufacturing. So the need of the hour is to promote private sector investment in manufacturing. So in this regard, you should understand that unlike the information technology sector, the manufacturing sector requires huge amount of land and investment. And the government cannot expect the entire funding to be borne solely by the manufacturers for these large-scale projects. Further, the government has taken various initiatives like the Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor, etc. However, the government cannot take up on its own the growth story of manufacturing. And that is why the government needs to play a facilitative role and provide for complementary financing of such large-scale viable projects. And in this regard, there is a need for promoting the private sector investment in manufacturing along with the investment of the government sector. Secondly, as we have discussed, the information technology sector had the advantage of exploiting the benefit of low-cost, high-value human capital. However, the manufacturing sector is facing shortage of skilled and semi-skilled laborers. So in this regard, there is a need to provide higher government subsidies on industrial trainings to various training institutes and colleges. And here it should be learned that the East Asian economies were able to attract huge amount of FDI into manufacturing sector because of sustained investment in the human capital formation. And that is why India needs to also invest in the human capital formation, and which would form the foundation of a high growth manufacturing sector. Further, there is a need to nurture industry leaders on the lines of the Chinese model. Now, China has been able to nurture and promote its domestic firms through various incentives, for example, tax breaks and reduced compliance burden. And on account of such sustained government support, these companies have now grown into global conglomerates. And some of the examples of these companies which have been supported by the Chinese government are Lenovo, Huawei, Haier, etc. And that is why India needs to learn from the Chinese model and promote domestic firms which could become industry leaders in the future. Fourthly, the industrial policy should also try to avoid high amount of competing investments by the private entities in a single sector or activity. So this shows that there is a need for diversification of various sectors. And this can be seen as India has witnessed competition of the private sectors and which has adversely impacted those sectors, especially in the telecom sector and the aviation sector. And in these sectors, high amount of competing investments have triggered price wars, and this has adversely impacted the profitability of both these sectors. So although these sectors have been very important for India, however, due to the limitation of growing sectors in India, the private capital has been competing in the telecom and the aviation sector. And this has led to price wars and competitive pricing, and which has drastically reduced the profits of companies which are operating in both these sectors. So that is why there is a need that the industrial policy should avoid competing private sector investment in only particular or very few sectors. Further, the manufacturing sector in India has been characterized by the problem of missing middle. And this was also named as the Chakravyuh problem in the economic survey. Now, what is meant by this missing middle? So this essentially means that the manufacturing sector is dominated by a large number of small scale enterprises or the MSMEs. And there are only few large scale firms. So there are large number of small scale enterprises and only a few large scale enterprises. However, there are disproportionately low or few middle sized enterprises. And this was also highlighted in the economic survey in a previous year. And why is this happening in India? This is because there have been incentives to stay smaller as compared to becoming bigger or growing. And this is visible from this example, which shows that there are strict labor laws, there is lack of flexibility to hire and fire under the Industrial Disputes Act. And these Industrial Disputes Act are strictly implemented on the big companies. However, the small companies can easily bypass such laws, and they find it attractive to stay smaller so that they do not get covered by the Industrial Disputes Act. And such a problem has been termed as the missing middle problem. So while formulating a new industrial policies, all these factors or issues should be addressed. So first is that there should be promotion of private sector investment. Secondly, government should invest into training institutes and colleges which provide the skilling of workers and create human capital on the lines of East Asian economies. Further, like China, India needs to nurture industry leaders and create some major global giants like Huawei, Haier and Lenovo. Further, there should be avoidance of competing private sector investment in only few sectors. And the examples that we have learned are telecom and aviation sector, which have witnessed competition from the major investing firms, and that is why it has led to price war and low profitability. And finally, there is a need to address the problem of missing middle, which means that there are large number of small companies in India and there are few large companies in India. However, there is a missing middle-sized enterprises in India. And that is particularly because the small sector companies or the small industries do not find it attractive to become big companies or large companies. And this is because of the high compliance burden in becoming a middle-sized company or a large company. So by addressing all these problems, India can achieve a sustained economic growth, which will be led by the manufacturing sector, and it will also lead to the growth of employment scenario in India. Now in the Daily News Simplified of 11th February 2019, we have discussed the various issues and opportunities which are provided by the special economic zones in India and what is the current status of these special economic zones. Now as we know that the special economic zones are very important for exports and the manufacturing sector. So that is why we will now revise the special economic zone related issues from the previous DNS video. Now there is an infographic related to the special economic zones on page number 16. And this special economic zone will be part of General Studies paper 3 of the mains examination under the topic economic development. Now here you should note that previously in the year 2015 of the mains examination in the General Studies paper 3, a question was asked related to these special economic zones. So that is why this topic becomes important for us from mains examination point of view. So in this article, we will try to understand what are special economic zones, what is the purpose of creation of these special economic zones or SEZs. Further, we will try to understand the benefits of creating these special economic zones. And finally, we will evaluate the present conditions or the present distribution of special economic zones in India as have been provided in this infographic. And finally, we will look at some of the challenges that are being faced by these special economic zones. Now, special economic zone is a geographical area that has economic laws different from a country's general economic laws, which means that it is a specially designated area which has different economic laws than the normal economic laws of a country. And they are delineated as duty-free enclaves, and shall be deemed to be a foreign territory for the purpose of only trade, duties and tariffs, which means that all other administrative laws are applicable except the economic laws or the normal economic laws. So in this line, India enacted the SEZ Act 2005, and this provided for the establishment, development and management of SEZs for the promotion of exports. So the promotion of exports was the primary objective of creating SEZs in India. Now the SEZ law also provides for the establishment of International Financial Center or Financial Service Center and Free Trade and Warehousing Zones. So here you should note that the Gujarat International Financial and Tech City in Gujarat has been established under the SEZ Act 2005, and this can be a very important fact for us from prelims examination point of view. So you should keep this point in mind. Now what were the purpose of creating such special economic zone? So the envisaged purpose for creation of special economic zones included generation of additional economic activity. This is because in these targeted areas, the economic laws are made liberal to promote the economic activity in general. Secondly, the promotion of export of goods and services was another important purpose for creation of these SEZs. It also included promotion of investment from domestic and foreign sources, creation of employment opportunity, development of infrastructure facilities, and providing globally competitive and hassle-free environment for companies engaged in exports for goods and services. So basically, these special economic zones were created with the purpose of promoting exports of goods and services and generating economic activity in those targeted areas. Now, benefits of creating such special economic zones include tax holidays. This means that the tax structure that is provided for companies that are operating in these special geographic areas or special economic zones have different tax impositions, and these generally have lower taxes or no taxes as compared to other industries or other companies operating in other areas. Further, these zones are provided with exemptions from import duties. And it has also been provided that single window clearance from state and central approvals will be provided here, which means that it also promotes ease of doing business. Now, as these benefits related to taxation, import duties and ease of doing business are provided in the SEZ formation, these are very important for India from the point of view of manufacturing-led growth. As we know that Indian economic growth has mainly been boosted by the service sector, and we have been lagging in the manufacturing sector. So one of the main purpose of creating SEZs is also to boost the manufacturing sector besides the services sector. Now let us evaluate the present situation of special economic zones in India. Now regarding the geographical distribution of the location of SEZs, they are more concentrated towards south and the western part of India. And as you can see in this infograph, Tamil Nadu has the highest number of special economic zones in the country. And Tamil Nadu is followed by Karnataka, and southern states account for 60% of the operational SEZs. So as you can see that Tamil Nadu has 40 special economic zones, followed by Karnataka which has 31. And also other southern states are leading in terms of creation of special economic zones. Secondly, you should note that although the special economic zones were envisaged to promote manufacturing-led exports, however, the special economic zone policy has been leveraged well by the companies in the services sector. And that is why predominantly the service sector dominates the special economic zones in India. And manufacturing sector has not leveraged the benefits of special economic zone. Now as you can see in this infographic, most of the SEZs facilitated delivery of more than one product. However, in 50% of them, IT products and services firms dominated the share of deliverables. Now as you can see that 54.1% are dominated by the information technology related services. So here also manufacturing sector is lagging in terms of leveraging the benefits from the special economic zones. Now regarding the value of exports from these SEZs, you can notice in this graph that the value of exports has been increasing continuously. There was only one dip in the year 2016, and even after that the value of exports has been increasing. Fourthly, the investments in SEZs has also been increasing, and this can be seen in the graph here. However, the rate of growth of investments has not been increasing very much, and this has shown a decelerating trend. So this infographic provides information related to the geographical disparity in terms of distribution of these SEZs. Secondly, it provides that predominantly service sector dominates the special economic zones. Thirdly, the value of exports has been increasing from these special economic zones, and also The investments in these special economic zones have been high, although the rate of growth of investments has been decelerating recently. Now, after going through these points, let us look at the challenges that are faced by these special economic zones. Now, some of the challenges faced by these special economic zones include: first is that some provisions of the SEZ law have not been operationalized. Provisions like single window clearances, etc., are taking time to be implemented. And due to this, the purposes in the SEZ law have not been realized fully. Now, the second challenge is related to the complexity in undertaking domestic and international businesses through the same units in the SEZs. And these are impacting the viability of SEZs for manufacturing. This is because the major focus of the SEZs is on export sector. And due to this, undertaking of domestic activities in these manufacturing units become difficult for the companies. Thirdly, there is uncertainty related to the government policies. And this can be seen by the example of withdrawal of minimum alternative tax, dividend distribution tax exemptions, announcement of sunset date, etc. And the government has been continuously changing its policies related to SEZs. And these are adversely impacting the viability and profitability of companies that are working in the SEZs. Fourthly, there are multiple regulatory stakeholders in the SEZs. And these include the direct tax authorities, indirect tax authorities, exchange controls, state governments, and the SEZ authorities themselves. And all these authorities are not necessarily aligned at all the times. And due to the multiple regulatory system, the viability and profitability of the companies in SEZs is impacted. And finally, there are procedural delays as well as infrastructural bottlenecks. Now here you should note that the special economic zones in China have been found to be very successful. This is because the SEZs in China focused on enabling only a limited number of zones. And these limited number zones were of large size, and these achieved the agglomeration benefits and maintained long-term focus on these zones. Now, as the number of SEZs are more in India, it becomes relatively difficult to focus on all of these units. However, as compared to India, China has focused on creating big or very large sized SEZs so that a large number of companies can operate from the same SEZs, and this leads to agglomeration benefits. Now, to deal with these challenges, a committee was created by the name Baba Kalyani Committee. And this committee has recommended a shift or a strategic shift in the purpose and principles of SEZs in India. So this committee has recommended that the purpose of the SEZ should be shifted from islands of exports to act as catalysts of economic and employment growth, which means that the overemphasis on exports should be done away with. And the focus should be on these SEZs acting as catalysts of economic and employment growth. So in this line, this committee has provided various recommendations. And these recommendations are included in the PDF that is attached to this video. So you can go through those recommendations as well. So after going through these points, you can try this question which was asked in the mains examination of 2015. And with this, let us move on to the next article. Now after today's discussion, you should try and answer these questions. Answer will be displayed after 5 seconds. Now the first question reads, the Basel Convention deals with which of the following? So the correct answer, as we have learned, is transboundary movement of hazardous waste, which is D. Second question reads, Nokrek Biosphere Reserve is located on which of the following? So it is located on the Garo Hills in Meghalaya. So this should be kept in mind. Further, you should try both these questions and answer will again be displayed after 5 seconds. So this question reads, which of the following biosphere is listed under the UNESCO's Man and Biosphere program? So as we have learned today that Kanchenjunga was recently added into the UNESCO's Man and Biosphere program. Hence the correct answer is D, that is Kanchenjunga. The next question reads, which of the following are part of the Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve? So as we have learned today, Wayanad, Bandipur, Silent Valley, etc. are part of the Nilgiri. And the correct answer is, hence the correct answer is D, that is 1, 2 and 3. With this, we have come to the end of today's discussion. Now let's move on to the question for the day.